I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Good morning, everybody. Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. Evelyn Higgins. Dr. Higgins has got this incredibly interesting story that I've just found a little bit about you, and it's incredible. I'm so pleased that somebody with intelligence and some passion has delved into a place where a lot of people fear to go, So
that's true.
Dr. Higgins, thank you very much for coming on to The Truth About Addiction. Please, what's your story for the listeners?
Well, first off, thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. And I appreciate being a guest on your show. Shows like this can do so much. Podcasts like this can do so much for people because it gives them a place to listen without being judged. So that's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. So I started out some 35 years ago in the area of pain management. And I was in a rural area, and kind of the way things were being done is try this, try that, doesn't work, we'll double it again, we'll change it. 20 years after that, I'm in an urban area and I think, okay, maybe we've advanced and things are going to be different. Exact same. Try this, try that approach. And if it doesn't work, we'll do this. No rhyme or reason to it at all. And I'm seeing people moving from dependency to addiction because these prescriptions being given out like it's candy without really having a game plan for that individual. And personally, I married an alcoholic, a man who probably had several addictions, and we had a child together. About a year after our daughter was born, we found out that he was adopted. So now it was like, I need to know health history. I need to know information. I'm looking at him and his behavior. I'm like, how deep does this run? In a family that we know nothing about. So before that, in my own practice, I had started delving into addiction because there was no resources, became a certified addiction professional. That's 35 years ago. And then as I moved along, I continued my education. And then I'm realizing we're not doing anything different in this space. It could be 1950. It could be 1970. It didn't matter because we weren't doing anything different. And I'm like, why are we not advancing this area of healthcare as we do other areas? And I'm like, it was because there was still, we say there's none, but it was because there's still this stigma that you got yourself there, you can get yourself out. It's a moral failing, which none of those things are true. And I said, we've got to start using technology to advance this area of healthcare. So that's how we came up with all the work that we do, looking at actual science, looking at biomarkers for that individual's unique physiology, their DNA, not the next person that comes into the office, but who they are, and being able to have a starting place for what's the blueprint? How are we going to get you to the other side of this? So that's kind of how it all evolved.
Yeah, wow. It's pretty incredible because I started getting into recovery in 1981.
Okay.
And I went through 12-step programs, long-term rehabilitation centers. And if my memory serves me correctly, in the mid-80s, the American government recognized it as a medical problem. Mm-hmm. And then they backtracked.
Yep, I was just going to say.
Then they backtracked.
Yep.
Because of all the health insurance.
Exactly. That's what it was all about, the almighty dollar at the end of this. And now still today, believe it or not, Ron, there are debates going on, is this a disease? I'm like, yes, it is. By definition, it's a disease. You even look at the National Institute on Drug Abuse defines addiction as a chronic, relapsing disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking despite adverse reactions, right? So by definition, disease is a deviation from the norm, the normal functioning of an organism. That's exactly what this is.
Yeah,
on a cellular level. And there's still people today that want to debate, is it by definition, is it a disease? Nobody wants to wake up one day and ruin their lives. That's not how this works.
I say all the time, you know, I wasn't born a liar, a thief, and a cheat. It took years of practice. You know, it's true. You know, like I grew up in a really bad environment. I don't justify that for my addiction. My father was a compulsive gambler.
Okay.
Incredibly bad gambler. Never drank, never took a drug, hated drug addicts. But the isms that I see in him, the excessive compulsive behavior and the total self-centeredness, which I call the disease of addiction, because even though I don't drink and drug, and I haven't drank since 1982 and I haven't drugged since 1986, I'm still obsessive and compulsive. I still had that hole in the stomach, that what I call the disease, of that disease with myself.
Disease, right.
I wasn't at ease with myself. That's why I grasped part of the disease concept, because until 81, I thought I had a moral deficiency. The system told me I had a moral deficiency. The cops told me, the judge told me, the police told me, the prisoners told me. I had my first drug administered in prison. I'd never taken a drug.
Wow.
And they put me on a drug called 𝐜𝐸𝐧𝐬𝐧. That was my first drug ever as a 17-year-old boy. At 19, I started intravenous using heroin.
Wow.
And because in the 70s, heroin was the drug. Everybody was, Rolling Stones were singing about it. You know, Eric Clapton was singing cocaine. You know, we complain now about the rap songs. You know, Brown Sugar was about heroin. You know,
it's true.
Yeah, I was trying to think of, you know, heroin makes me feel like a man when I put a spike into my arm. What was his name? Lou Reed. His song was called Heroin.
Yeah.
You know, it was called Heroin. You know, you make me feel like a man when I put a spike into my vein. Things ain't quite the same. Rodriguez, you know, my company, you had a company called Sugarman Classics. It was all about drug addiction, all through the 70s, and it was cool.
It was cool, exactly.
We didn't know that you're going to destroy your life. We didn't know that you're going to end up in prisons and derelict and destitute. We didn't know that stuff. We thought it was cool. You know, the rock stars were doing it.
Right. Yeah, the cool guys were doing it. Yeah.
That had become extremely boring.
Yeah.
You know, I think drug addiction and prison are two of the most boring things I've ever experienced in my life. They're waste of life, complete waste of life. Nothing good comes out of drug addiction and nothing good comes out of prison.
Yeah. How long were you in prison?
In total, about 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Wow.
But I was also extremely lucky that I believed in recovery. I believed that there was a choice. Once I had information, and once I had the courage to apply that information.
Yeah, it takes courage.
Information without application is nothing.
Useless.
It's
useless.
nothing. So you've gone into the depths of saying that you could probably find it in the DNA of people.
So we look at 85 different biomarkers, starting with neurotransmitters, brain chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, phenylethylamine, list goes on and on. Hormones, from stress hormones to androgens, our sex hormones, how those interact together. And then what are called SNPs, or genetic single nucleotide polymorphisms. All that means, a polymorphism, is that there's an error in someone's genetic coding. That error creates what we call aberrant behavior, things like risk-taking, impulse control, right? Addiction, anxiety, depression. And now we can identify these things. I mean, the technology to look at it wasn't around until 2015. Some of the SNPs that we look at, Japanese physician won a Nobel Prize for in 2017. So that's how new this information is of what we look at. But we have come this far, so we need to use it. We need to employ it. And then say to someone, this is what's going on. So you don't have the wiggle room here. And the most fascinating part of science, I think, today, Ron, is something called epigenetics, which we now know that we can turn genes on, turn genes off, which changes the expression of your DNA. Your DNA is going to remain your DNA. Here's your cards, play them out. But what can change is the expression of your DNA. That is the most powerful thing that anyone should, their ears should perk up and say, oh my goodness, you can change how your genes are expressed. Well, the obvious thing is let's start and learn where are our genes. And then if we need to change that expression, by all means, let's do it.
Okay, that was my question was going to be next, was like, it's okay knowing what's causing, but how do we fix that?
Yep.
How do we correct that? Because I believe what you said, I believe I've always known that I was wired differently. Always. Always. I'm talking back to a little boy, long before I ever took a chemical. I used to lay in bed and think the stalk dropped me off at the wrong place.
Wow.
I didn't feel, I didn't think, and I didn't act and react like other people did.
Wow.
I was the kid that when you went to someone's house, their mum would say, I don't really want you hanging out with that guy. He's not wired the same as us.
Yeah. Wow.
And I thought it was my upbringing because I came from a really violent, my dad was a gangster. But I have an incredible, it's not a dilemma. I have twin daughters.
Ah, okay.
They're 40 years of age.
Wow.
Twins, born in the same house.
Yep.
Conceived at the same time. The whole deal.
Yeah.
One's an addict, one's not an addict. And that's always confused the hell out of me when we go into the biomechanics, all that. So I don't pretend to understand the science of it.
Yep.
Dr. 𝐤𝐸𝐬 talks about trauma.
Yep.
That's a little bit broad brush for me because everybody has trauma.
Exactly. Like our lives are the little T's and the big T's, right? Yeah. But the after the conversation, the next sentence should be, and trauma changes our physiology.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where we should be going with it. Because as you say, everybody's, if you're alive, you have trauma.
Being born's traumatic. I've witnessed all my children be born. It was traumatic for me watching them be born.
Yeah.
And I can imagine what's going on with that poor little baby being, pushed through the birth canal and coming out with their head all squashed and shaped. And to me, it was like, wow, this is traumatic.
Yep.
So I think there's more to it than just putting a broad brush and saying, okay, it's trauma.
Exactly.
But what did the trauma do to me?
Right.
It changed my feel, whatever that word you said.
Yeah, the expression. And you bring up the perfect example with your twin daughters. One is an addict, one isn't. So both raised in the same home, same environment, same everything. Whatever point in time this happened on your daughter that became an addict, whatever was going on within her in her environment turned those genes on. Both of them had those genes. Turn them on in her to express that way.
Yeah, I believe I know what it is. I've separated from my wife. My daughter that became an addict looked just like me.
Wow.
So she was treated a little bit differently to the other one because the other one was the favourite.
Yeah.
And she was the other one's the oldest, and the youngest twin was exactly blue eyes, blonde hair, looked like dad. It was funny because on Facebook when that first came out, 10, 12 years ago, and she had her Facebook picture on there, and you say, do you want to tag Ron Isherwood? And she's a pretty young girl. She goes, this is not a good thing, Dad, when facial recognition is trying to tag you as me, poor darling, yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And she's now a registered nurse. She runs a drug rehabilitation detox centre. And she's gone right into helping people, which is wonderful.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. So she's figured it out.
18 years clean.
Wow.
She has a 19-year-old daughter, and she's a really beautiful woman who's carrying the strong. She's a little bit like me. She's a very strong individual. But that was always confused me. It was like, okay, if it's a genetic thing, we've got two kids born the same. I've always going to ask that doctor, that 𝐸𝐸𝐬𝐬, what his name is.
Yeah.
We did a bit of a health thing here, and he was doing a Zoom call, doing a seminar, and I never got the chance to ask him. I was going to say, that's your theory, but there has to be more to it.
Right.
It's too broad of a brush.
Yep.
For me, and
Yep.
I'm not an expert in anything, but what I'm an expert in is not picking up a drug one day at a time for the last 37.5 years.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people in the world that can say that were so heavily involved in drug addiction, drug smuggling, drug dealing, drug, everything was drug. My whole life revolved around the getting, using, and finding ways to get more.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It didn't matter if I had a kilo of heroin, I was still trying to get the next kilo.
Right.
You know, I ended up on the street as a street junkie, homeless, penniless, walking around all night because I had nowhere to sleep. And then I got clean, and I turned all that energy and that drive, the obsessive compulsive behavior, into positives.
Yep.
So I didn't change my addiction, I changed my drug of choice. I changed it to success.
Right.
My version of whatever success was.
Right.
Was to be a good dad, a good provider, a good husband, to be trusting, loving, caring, and
I love it.
And I still have that obsessive compulsive nature because nothing's been changed.
Right. You just put it in another place.
I reprogrammed that.
Yep.
To a positive direction.
Yep.
From the negative, from being a destructive intravenous drug user to being a constructive person who helps other people get clean, which keeps me congruent. So I believe I always say to people, you don't have a drinking problem, you have a thinking problem. You have to reprogram your thinking because there's something wrong with our brain. There's nothing wrong with our heart.
Right.
Most addicts and alcoholics have a heart of gold.
Gold. Yep.
And a head of spaghetti. I say all the time, you got a head of spaghetti and a heart of gold. We've got to unravel that spaghetti and try to get a connection between those two that makes a balance.
Absolutely. So what made you get sober?
My twin daughters.
Okay.
I met their mum in rehab. I went from prison to rehab. I met their mum. We fell in love, red house romance in a drug rehab. She fell pregnant. I went back to jail. But I had something to live for. Right. I had something, because I never loved me, because I thought I was unlovable, because as I said, I came from a really dysfunctional family where there was no love. I've just written a book. It was released last month called Born into the Lie of Crime.
What is it? Born into the Life of Crime?
Lie, yes, life, but the F gets crossed out and it's born into the lie of crime.
I love it.
And that's me on the back there as a 14-year-old boy holding a machine gun in my dad's lounge room.
Whoa.
So, yeah, and all that stuff on the front is my criminal convictions for shoot with intent to murder, shoot with intent to murder. This is before I'd ever picked up a drug.
Wow.
Because it was crazy, I came from crazy town. As I said, my dad was a gangster, and I was taught to be a criminal. If my dad had been a doctor, I would have been a neurosurgeon. If my dad had been a lawyer, I would have been a Queen's Counsel. Right. Because I disliked him so much, I wanted to be better than him. Yeah. But because he was a criminal, I wanted to be a better criminal. Yeah. So, so do you believe that we can actually change the addiction side? Absolutely. We see it all the time in the work that we do, because once we get that information as to what is that individual's physiological makeup and their unique biology, we look at those biochemical pathways where we have errors and we say, what do we need to do? What biosynthesis precursors? What do we need to do to make this function in a more optimal level? Yeah, we have a doctor in Australia. I don't know if you know him. You do the worst operation. When everybody say we can't do them, he'd do them. And he had a couple of people pass away. So he crucified him in a lot of ways. And I know him. I've actually met him. I found Dr. 𝐈𝐸, his name is. He's an Australian neurosurgeon. And I met him and we talked about it a few months ago. And he said to me, Ron, I know exactly what addiction is. He said, I can tell you it's in your brain. I can tell you it's something to do with the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at him like, Charlie, this is really a little bit above my pay rate. You know, like you told me somebody who dropped out of school at 14 years of age and, you know, couldn't read or write and actually taught himself to read and write in prison. And Charlie's a really nice guy. I'm going to get him on the podcast very soon and we'll have this conversation.
Yeah,
maybe one day we can even organise to have a three-way.
That would be great.
Zoom. Yeah. But Charlie said, mate, it's not a big deal. I know exactly what's going on. Because he said to me, I can tell somebody's addiction through their brain. You know, and I didn't understand. Then you came available. My wife came and said, there's a lady that wants to talk to you about addiction. And I went and researched and I was like, oh my God, this is the same stuff Charlie's talking about.
Yeah.
This is, you know, I hope that we're onto something because I watch people die all the time because of this dirty disease.
Mm-hmm.
I had a phone call I deal with a lot of young kids. A guy rang me who I dealt with his son from a 17-year-old boy who was 6 foot tall and 40 kilos, which is around about 90 pounds, 6'1".
Wow.
He was a sportsman. He was 70 years of age. He'd been on the street for nearly 3 years and he was dying. So anyway, I worked with him. He's 18 months clean. He just won the grand final of his football team this year.
All right.
He's got a girlfriend. He's doing an apprenticeship. He's telling all this really good stuff. Well, one of the kids he grew up from school with, his mum contacted his dad and said, can we get Ron, this guy's phone number to talk to our son?
Mm-hmm.
And Mick said, it's Thursday today. If he's fair income on Friday, he said on Friday, said, if he's real on Monday, I'll get you Ron's number. He blew his own brains out on the Saturday in his mother's house, an 18-year-old boy. And this is the stuff that I sort of see every day.
Yeah.
And people want to tell me it's a moral disease. No, it's not. I have a theory. The reason people hang themselves and the reason people shoot themselves in the head is because they're trying to disconnect their head from their heart. They're trying to shut the chatter. I say to everybody, why does somebody shoot himself in the heart? Because they're trying to stop that.
You know what? Yep.
It's a mental health problem.
It is a mental health problem. It's trying to self-medicate whatever is going on underneath there, be it OCD, anxiety, depression, ADHD, ADD, you know, the list goes on and on. Nobody is going to try to reach for something outside of themselves to change this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a scale. It's not, you're not healthy one day and sick the next. You're not healthy one day and an addict the next. It's everything going on in between there that gets you to either side of it.
Yeah, 100%. And it takes a long time to get well. People say to me, well, how do we get better? I said, one day at a time.
One day at a time. That's where it comes from.
Extremely slowly, you know. And the nice part is that getting clean one day at a time, it's not such a explosion of the brain, because I would have been able to cope with my feelings and emotions at 1 year clean that I could at 20 years clean, at 30 years clean.
Right.
You know, because today I can cope with most things. You know, I've had family members pass away. I've had my own son pass away while I've been in recovery. I've had my sister die from this disease in recovery while I've been in recovery. I had my brother OD and die while I've been in this recovery. You know, I went back to prison in recovery and I've stayed clean. Why? I'm a really bad street junkie because all of a sudden I got given a choice and it was called information. So I had to reprogram my brain. So if I had to reprogram my brain, it took me 40 years, 42 years of doing this stuff. If we could find a better way where there wasn't so many people dying in the practice of getting this better way, because I'm a really small number. I think I'm a 2%. I don't even believe it's 2% because I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of people come through 12-step programs, rehabilitation centers that I never ever see again. You know, most of them end up in prisons, jails, institutions of death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if there is a way that, you know, we can change their chemical in their brain, like you're saying, why aren't we searching it? Why aren't we working
There you
on it? Why aren't we? Because if you stop drug addiction or control drug addiction, you control the crime rate.
Right. If you want to
Right
just
away.
look at the bottom line,
Yeah.
we're all going to be better off. Society is going to be better off. If you're just caring about the dollars, our bottom line will be better.
100%.
Yep.
Because the cost of crime, the cost of policing, the cost of locking people up,
Yep.
the cost of medical
Care.
hepatitis C,
Yeah.
thing,
Heart disease. Yeah. Cancers. It goes on and on and on. Yep.
exactly. You know, so why can't people just get to the point where they understand that this is not a moral deficiency, this
Right.
is a mental health problem.
Right.
I think too much emphasis has been put on the word disease, because they're trying to say, oh, it's not like diabetes, we can't be.
Right.
But as you're saying now, we can pick it out. If you can pick that out of
Right.
someone's DNA, you say, well, there it is, there's the evidence. This is the gene that's whatever, and you can change it. I just have to understand why the government aren't jumping on and throwing money at you and saying, improve this, prove it to us, give it to us. We've got nothing to lose.
We've got nothing to lose. And it does come down to the dollars and cents. Who's ever in power at that moment doesn't want to put money into something long ball. They want to see in there, right here, this is my time, you know, and it doesn't make sense. Everybody loses as a result of it.
Because you know, as well as I do, that the drug epidemic has got worse. There's no,
absolutely.
The war on crime is a failure, because as long as we have supply, as long as we have demand, we'll always have supply because of the financial gain.
Yep.
A lot of the financial, and I don't mean to get into politics with this stuff, but one of the biggest drug dealers in Australia was the head of the Crimes Commission. He was one of the top guys in the police force. He went to jail. He was organising. He was in charge of the wharfs, in charge of the seafront border security.
Yeah.
And he was in charge of ICAC, you know, Internal Criminal Association. And he got arrested, and they whitewashed it. Oh, he got arrested with a couple of 100 kilos of ephedrine coming from China. That's crap. He's been doing this for 10 years. And everybody knew he was doing it. Like, all the criminals knew he was doing it. So that meant all the cops knew he was doing it.
Yeah, word on the street.
Yeah. And he was bringing in hundreds and hundreds of kilos of everything. And he was a compulsive gambler. How does a politician go to the races and lose hundreds of thousands of dollars on racehorses on his wage?
Yeah, you know, you don't have that money.
It's all bull crap. You know? Like,
it is. How long ago was that?
That one's about 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. It's still happening.
Sure.
I remember when I was on the street, like, this is my whole life. This is the true story. I was approached by by the armed hold-up squad in 1970 something to sell heroin for them. I said no. They said, if you don't sell heroin for us, you don't sell heroin on the streets. I got approached by two different big police forces that said, no, you sell our heroin or you don't sell anyone's heroin. This is our streets. You sell our heroin.
Wow.
And we had a rogue cop in Australia who killed 3 guys I know, shot them, killed them, and got medals for it. And he was one of the biggest drug dealers, and he was notorious. It was his heroin.
Goodness.
And you bought his heroin, and he retired from the police force, and he killed a young Chinese boy, 22 years of age, shot him dead over a couple of kilos of ice, and he's in jail doing life sentence right now. He's one of the most highly decorated police officers in Australia.
Wow.
So how are we going to fix this if this is what's controlling it? You know,
like right.
Because if we can take away the demand, supply will die.
Exactly. That's basic economics, right?
Yeah. It's 1 + 1 = 2 in the world that we live in.
Yeah. Get rid of the demand.
Yeah. Get rid of the demand. Who wants to be a storage shed?
Right.
You know, you're keeping millions of dollars worth of drugs that you're going to go to prison for in a shed because you can't sell it because there's no demand. It's no longer a great business.
It's gone.
Yeah. It's just so simple, and I don't understand why we don't have this. And you got to remember, I'm not putting myself down, but I'm not a highly educated person, but I'm street smart.
You're educated.
I'm street smart. I grew up on the streets, and it's simple mathematics. You take away the demand, the supply will die. Take away the criminology, take away the power, the amount of money that some people with very low IQs, and I'm not being rude when I say this, are in control of the drug trade.
Yep.
And people with very low IQ don't care about anybody else or themselves.
Right.
So the most dangerous person in any room is a person who cares the least.
Yep.
And they're the people that are running the drug worlds. Because they've got no moral compass, they've got no empathy or compassion. Plus, they don't even understand what addiction is doing until it happens to their family, to one of their children.
Then it's different.
Yeah. It's the same with the politicians.
Yep.
Until it happens to one of their children, it's like, oh, now we have a drug problem.
Oh, it's real.
Let's address it. Let's fix it.
Yeah, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Then he gets voted out next year. The next guy coming, he hasn't experienced addiction in his family. The problem's gone.
Yep.
The problem's gone.
Yep. It's a cycle. Vicious cycle.
So more about you, please. I'm so intrigued.
Sure. So we started actually with the justice system with Wired for Addiction, and judges, we were learning that judges loved seeing objective information because they're saying, you're making my job easier. I can make a judgment based on objective information. Boom. And we were really, we even see people in prisons and sentencing for DWIs, things like that. So then the greater population started saying, I'm not quite an addict yet, but I am self-medicating, right? So can you help me? So that's how all of this kind of just escalated to where we are today. And there is such a need. I mean, post-COVID, 𝐘𝐲𝐧 study came out that 53% of the population is diagnosed. And we know what that means. Diagnosed. There's a lot of other people undiagnosed. 53% of the population diagnosed with anxiety and depression. So undiagnosed, if you're out in the world, we're dealing with 85, 90% of the population that's saying, hey, I need some help here.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And there's a way to do it instead of playing the guessing game. There is an actual methodical way to do this.
And the government haven't come on board?
Government, no, but we're trying to work with some government agencies on some pilots that really are going well so far. So we get to the end of that and things will change. I really do see that things could change because there's such an interest in what we're doing.
Yeah. And we have to get to big pharmaceuticals there.
People are finally, I think there's enough information out there that they're demanding different things. Whereas before, people didn't have the information to say, okay, here's my case and have all the facts. Now they do. Yeah. So the people are demanding different ways.
Yeah, I loved what you said in the beginning, so many people were over-medicated.
Yep.
General practitioner's job is to write prescriptions. They get rewarded.
Absolutely.
For writing prescriptions.
I can speak for the United States. In the United States, we consume 80% of the entire world's pain medications. 80%. We make up, depending on whose numbers you want to look at, 5 to 7% of the global population, and we're consuming 80%. It's because that's how we've been taught to think. So is our pain physical? Is our pain emotional? Is our pain intellectual? Is our pain spiritual? It's all those things.
Yep. So let's write a prescription for something that's going to. I'm a pain sufferer. I have spinal disease called spondylolisthesis, and it's degenerative, and I get a lot of nerve entrapment, and I've had the spinal fusion and all that stuff. And I fight with doctors all the time because they say that I'm untreatable because I won't take the oxycodone and the codeines. I won't take them. I refuse to take them.
Yeah.
And when I say refuse to take them, if I can't get out of bed, I'll take one and stay in bed and go to sleep. And they said to me, why won't you take these tablets? I said, you don't understand. When I take the tablet, it takes away the pain. It masks the pain.
Right.
I said, so, okay, we've masked the pain. I agree, we've masked the pain. I said, when my little boy jumps in the swimming pool, he goes, Dad, look at me. I don't feel the joy.
Right. Right.
Because now we've masked the joy.
Yep. Yep.
I said, so you can't take away my pain and then take away my happiness and expect me to be a zombie.
So how do you respond to you? Because you make complete sense.
Oh, they don't. They all shake their head and say, you're uncredible. We can't help you. We can't help you. You know, they said to me, you have to learn to live with it. And I said, oh, I do. Well, that's my choice. I choose to live with it. But they didn't get that at first. Now they get it. You know, I've had the same GP for over 30 years. And I say to him, you take away my happiness.
Right.
You've taken away the pain. Yeah, okay, I agree. Your opiate-based, codeine-based drug that you give me that is a dependent, not only that I have an awareness that I won't take more than twice in 2 days, and I take half prescribed medication, I take half a tablet, and it still does the pain.
Right.
The normal prescription is 2 tablets 3 times a day. I take half a tablet for 1 day. So I'm so micro, medicating compared to what the general practitioner is advising. I would have a drug habit within a week if I took the drugs they wanted to give me. A physical, not mental. I'd have a physical drug habit.
Yep. And doesn't your physician understand that in your past history?
No, none of them do. None of them do. No, nobody understands because nobody cares. It's not my car, so why do I care if it's broken down on the side of the road?
Yeah.
That's the attitude of the world. We've become so selfish and so self-centered that if it hasn't affected me directly, I'm not going to get involved. I've noticed with a lot of, because I can do it with the younger people, half the time the parents are the problem.
Yes.
When I go into a counselling session, I usually have to have a counselling session with the whole family. By the second or third week, I'm saying, Mum and Dad's got to sit on this session. Then I've got to say to Dad, stop treating him like a child. He's 25 years of age, still living at home, and you're not going to buy him a puppy. Are you serious? Because because he was a naughty boy last weekend, you're not going to buy him a puppy. Please.
Yeah.
Please. You want to act like a man, start treating him like a man. Right. It's that simple, make people accountable, make people responsible. But I'm so intrigued to see where your system goes. I think it's such a wonderful thing. And I really believe in my heart that you're onto something that's really important. And that's coming from someone who's been around this industry for 42 years.
Right. That means a lot.
I say all the time, I'm a bit sarcastic when I say this, I'm not a smart man, but I know what drug addiction is.
Absolutely.
And I know what works and I know what doesn't work. And I know there's not, one hat fits all.
Right, exactly.
But I know that it's more to it than a moral deficiency. Yes. I know there's not a criminal act. Selling dope and all that's a criminal act, not taking it. Because we no longer have the choice. Once we start this chemical dependency, our choice is gone. Once I put a chemical in my body, I can no longer guarantee my behavior.
Right. You'll become so different.
Yeah, why do you think women that have children leave their children for drug addiction? And they say when they get clean, they cry and they say, I can't believe I couldn't stop for my kids.
Right.
I can't believe I couldn't stop for my husband. I can't believe I couldn't stop for my wife. I threw away a multi-million-dollar business to get stoned on coke every Thursday night, then every Thursday became every day. All these people didn't plan on becoming hopeless, useless, and worthless. This just happens as part of the disease, the progression of our dis-ease.
Dis-ease, exactly.
And it stops working. The chemicals stop working. They stop numbing whatever we're trying to numb. Addiction is killing people on a daily basis, every single day. You guys in America got that drug fentanyl, which hasn't really hit Australia fully yet. It'll come. It'll come.
Okay. It'll
It's
come.
not here yet.
Yep,
It's
it'll
not
come.
here yet. My stepbrother died of it, off the patches. He was getting the fentanyl patches and shooting them up. But it'll come. You know, that fracker that's on Philadelphia now, and I watch it on videos. See, I remember in Australia when we had scenes like that from the heroin in the 70s, where the whole streets were just lined with people homeless, sleeping in doorways. And then it cleaned up. How did it clean up? They put everyone in prison. They stopped the Mental Health Act in Australia. And they stopped mental asylums, basically, and put everyone in prisons. Now the prisons are full of psychopaths and murderers who went to prison, got abused, and boys' homes, got abused physically, sexually, mentally abused, and came out serial killers. You know, it's quite funny. I've got an 8-year-old son. He's I love him. He's so beautiful. And he we're talking yesterday, and I said serial killers, and my little boy turned and said, "They what? They kill the cornflakes?"
I love it. That's great.
I started laughing.
Oh, that's good.
He's the apple of my eye, and he was just
That's
so.
good.
They what? They kill the cornflakes?
They kill the cornflakes. No. Now
Yeah.
what?
And I said, "No, buddy." See, I talked to my 8-year-old boy. I was talking to him about addiction last night, about his iPad addiction.
Yeah.
And I was saying, "Mate, listen, you got to understand. You're looking for something outside of yourself to make yourself feel good. What you're looking for is you need, you know, because now we have a rule, you only have 70 hours, then it's got to stop, and then we play, and we cuddle, and we get on the bed, and we wrestle, and we all laugh and joke. And, you know, I try to educate my son. You know, he's a really good mathematician. He's very smart. Because my father didn't believe in education. All my twin daughters went to private schools. You know, my other daughter, my American daughter, she went to private school to start with. I believe in education because
Right.
I never had education as a child. That's one of my regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, I couldn't read or write. And I went to prison and I learned to read and write. And then I've written a book, and I'm, you know, an author, which is a really proud moment for me, for a kid who couldn't read or write. And I try to educate my children on honesty, on facts, not on what someone else said over the road. And I say to them, challenge it. What is the basis that I'm making this decision on? Is it fact? Is it because I want them to like me? Is it because I don't know and I don't want to admit it?
Right.
And I say to them all the time, why are we making this decision, buddy? You know, so yeah, but my belief is that if we could find a way of being able to treat people's addictions through, I don't even understand how we do it. I'd love to be part of it, you know. And if I can do anything as far as give you information from addiction from the addict's point of view, someone who's been around for as long as I have, I'm open book. You know, anything you need from me, you've got it.
I love it. Absolutely.
Anything to support your cause, I'll be there. You know, and I've got so many friends who are around the 40-year clean mark now. There's a little bunch of us, we all got together, and because it was so small, 12-step programs and all that stuff were tiny in Australia, and we got really close and we stuck together, and we're still together today.
Wow,
and most of my mates are the CEOs of some of the biggest drug rehabs in Australia, and you know, we all work in drug and alcohol. We all work in helping each other, because I believe the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel.
Absolutely.
Now, I believe that because of the lack of resources we have in the medical field to treat the addiction as what it really is, which I believe is a chemical imbalance somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a shortcoming somewhere in my thinking. I know my thinking's stuffed. I've been a drug for 37 years, yet I still think crazy. I don't act it, and I don't react to it, but I still have the same thoughts. Not about using, because I know that I can't use drugs and have a good life. I've proved that to myself. But I still have the obsessive compulsive disorder. I still have I'm not good enough, and I'm pretty successful. You know, I live in a nice home. I don't owe the money on the house. I have a beautiful wife and children. I drive a nice car, and I have a wonderful company that helps people, and sometimes my self-worth can still go, you're a fraud. Well, I just say, no, I'm not, because I have a strong belief in who I am today. So it tells me that it doesn't matter how long you've been off the drug or the drink or whatever sex. So people don't understand, it's got nothing to do with the substance we use.
Exactly. It's whatever gives you that feeling that you were first introduced to at whatever age that says, whoa, that's what I've been looking for. And then it works till it doesn't work. It's not
100%.
about the sex. It's not about the alcohol. That's just the pacifier.
Yeah.
It's about what's going on inside of you.
And what you said is the truth. It works till it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to people, addiction is a seductress. It promises you everything, and it strokes your back, and it tells you you're beautiful, and tells you it loves you, and tells you it will never leave you. And the minute it's got you, it's over. It's over. And we chase that, like a sick relationship. That toxic relationship that can never work, but maybe it will.
Yep, you can't let it go because there's that thought, maybe, just maybe.
I still remember the first time. It was so euphoric, that first feeling. Yeah. That first feeling never lasted long for me. I hear people say, oh, I used drugs for 20 years, or I drank for. I wasn't that guy. I was burned out in the first 2 years, 3 years. I knew it was horrible, but I couldn't stop. Because once I stopped, I didn't know how to live with life on life's terms.
Right.
So I had this incredible hole. I call it the rats. This is how I explain drug addiction. It's like you've got rats eating your guts. There's a hole inside you that's just chewing away at you. And the only way you stop for me was to intravenously use heroin to put the rats to sleep.
That's visual.
Yeah. And that's how it felt to me. That's how it honestly felt to me. As soon as the heroin was starting to go in my body, the rats would start to wake up. And I'd start to feel them eating me again. So I'd have to anesthetize the rats again. Because, physical drug dependence is terrible. The mental prison is horrible because the lock's on the inside. And the spiritual degradation of total self-centeredness is disastrous. Yep. So anyone who's got drug addiction, and I believe we're obligated as human beings, because we're human beings first, not drug addicts, not drug addicts. I'm a human being, then I'm a man, then I'm a drug addict. Everybody focuses on the drug addict. Well, what about the human? What about the guy that still craves from his mother, whose mum passed away when I was only 19? Everyone forgets about that guy. Where's that guy? Where's the guy that laid in his cells crying at night and saying, I never want to do this again, and getting out the very next week and then using straight away, but he had no living skills. Right. So there's more to it than a moral deficiency.
Absolutely.
It is a mental health disease. I don't care what anyone tells us.
Absolutely. Agreement. I agree with you.
And I talk from a long time of experience. I'm 69 years of age. I've been in active addiction since I was 17. Like when I say active addiction, I believe today I'm still an addict. I just don't use chemicals. Right. I still think, I went back to prison at 16 years sober. But I was still acting out in other areas. I was still a criminal. It's been breaking the criminal cycle is harder than breaking the drug addiction, because I was a criminal before I was a drug addict.
Right.
I was born into a life of crime. I sat on my father's knee as a little boy and was told education's for stupid people. School can't teach you what you need to know. And when I told my dad I wanted to be a lawyer, he said, you want to fight the cops, you buy a gun. That were his words. You want to fight the cops, you buy a gun. And, so we can get through all that adversity and we can make change, but there has to be a pioneer, and there has to be someone that says, no, please look at this evidence, look at this evidence, it's here.
This is evidence, this is objective.
Yeah, I'm going to do a lot more study on your cases. I really want to stay in contact and follow what you're doing, because
absolutely,
I'm excited.
For sure, and I'm going to get your book.
No, you just got to go onto the truthaboutaddiction.com.au and you can order it there.
Okay.
But yeah, look, I'm so excited to have you on. I was chuffed when I got the message, and I thought, yeah, okay, this is what I believe in.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, you're doing great work, and this is how people have hope.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
And we will spread the word, because with this audience over this side of the world, there's other people like me that feel the same. We all say it's not a moral deficiency.
No way.
Yeah. I was always a good person doing bad things.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a bad person.
Right.
I was a good person doing bad things. And today, I'm a good person. I don't do bad things. Today, I try to do more good than harm. I believe I can only keep what I've got by giving it away. And I believe that I'm alive because whatever my higher power is,
You have a purpose.
has got a purpose. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing what I do now.
You can tell. It's in your fiber.
Yeah, I owe everything I have to recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought I was going to die a junkie in some prison cell. And that's not my story. Somebody else had a plan for me.
Change the story.
Yeah.
Rewrite the story. Beautiful.
And that's what I hope you guys are doing. I really do. I pray to God that this system that we have wakes up and understands it's not a moral deficiency. It's not a moral dilemma. We have to treat these people. We have to find a way out that we can help them. Sure, doing it the way I did it was bloody hard work, and it's very slow and tedious. So if we could find a better way, a more efficient way, we wouldn't have to have so much suffering.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
It's all about suffering. Come on, guys, I really, really appreciate you coming on to the Truth About Addiction. I've got so much. I usually write down heaps of notes. I've written Dr. Evelyn Higgins, ex-husband, that was it. I've written nothing because I'm just intrigued, and it's so
Ron,
beautiful.
this has been an absolute pleasure. We will stay in touch for sure.
Yeah. Dr. Evelyn Higgins, what a beautiful encounter. I'm very intrigued in what you're doing, and I'm so happy to have met you, and it's only the beginning.
Likewise, Ron. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the Truth About Addiction.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.